Happy Tuesday, everyone. It's another week. It's the final week of October, Jeffrey, and we get to celebrate with a victory here for the Lions as they improved to 6-1 on the season, Jeffrey, with a pretty you had dared to dream perhaps another 40 burger. Well, they
Oh,
gave us the 50
oh, we
burger.
got a juicy 50 burger. Yeah, absolutely. And shout out Hillary, my wife. It's her birthday today. Happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Hillary,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
Yeah.
There were some props on the Lions grid, but love you, honey. But yes, dominating win. It didn't look so in the first, 5 minutes of the game, 10 minutes of the game when
Mhm.
we were kind of trading tutties. I was getting a little worried, actually. I had texted Kevin, him being at the game, him seeing this from his own eyes.
Mhm.
I'm like, Kevin, get in there, man. Stop these people. But it turned out to be all right for us.
Yeah, it was. It certainly. It took a while. It did feel that way at the game too, for there to be that sort of ramp up. But when things did take off, man, they took off big time. So it was impressive there. So Jeffrey, as we dig into this game, I'll get the highlights rolling here for us, and we'll talk about this game because certainly we'll look at the box scores too here in a moment. But if you were just to look at the box score compared to the highlights, the Titans had themselves a pretty impressive day. Calvin Ridley right there. He was a beast in this game. The Lions had a really hard time stopping him, and he was really the only receiver that really had things going. But the Lions really executed in all three phases of the game, and it's I'm sure we'll talk about the special teams performance here. But it really was just a solid team victory here for the Lions over the Titans.
Yeah, absolutely. We are absolutely feeling ourselves right now. We David Montgomery threw a touchdown pass.
Mhm.
Goff ended his day 12 of 15, only 85 yards, three touchdowns though. And he was at like 28 yards in the third quarter or something like that, when they already had like 40 something points. So that actually might hurt your MVP talk, just because he had to
Just
sit and
just
not
because he's
look
not
at the
putting up the
stats.
stats, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe that should be held against him. I don't think it should be, but I might be biased.
He might not have the yards, but he had the tutties, so I
Yeah,
feel like that helps out.
yeah,
And he had no interceptions or fumbles on the day either. So that combining together with just the way that this team's rolling right now, it certainly seems like he certainly if he did what if the Lions were as successful as they were and he had the yardage to back it up, I think he'd be making an even stronger case. But he's definitely number 16 back there is having himself some days there for the Lions.
yeah. Absolutely. And he was sacked on early, and like we actually just came up here. He got
Like
sacked
we just
early,
saw,
but
right?
yeah, he got sacked early, but that was about it. After we kind of locked in and got great field position multiple times, turned them into points. Tennessee really couldn't have any answers for us. But kind of a weird game overall, though, because receiving yards, Sam Laporta led the way with 48 yards, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, it's these games don't come around very often. That's for sure.
Yeah, and both David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs were impressive in this game. Specifically taking a look at you see Jameer Gibbs on the red zone and stuff like that, and it's clear that he's quick. But seeing him like this touchdown, seeing this live and in person, just how quick he took that handoff and went to the house was just
I think he hit the
crazy.
22-mile-per-hour mark, which is that's elite speed right there.
It was just, I mean, it was electrifying. They had just scored to tie it up. Everyone was kind of, it was like, all right, we might have to settle in here for a game where we're going to be trading blows back and forth. And then he just took it to the house, and that place just got electric in there. And I will say, when it comes to football games, I certainly, as I've gotten older, I prefer the comforts of home when watching football games. Not a huge fan of giant crowds of people in general. So I try to avoid those. But I will say, if you do have the ability to go to one of these Lions games, I'd been to two previously in my life. I'd been to one when Carson Palmer was the quarterback of the Cardinals.
Oh,
And then I went Dan Campbell's first season when we played the Eagles and we got smashed. And so previously, the two games I'd been to were just Lions beatdowns, and so not a very fun environment. But here, being at this game, it felt a lot like Jeffrey. We were sort of lucky, blessed in the fact that when we were at Michigan State, it was sort of at the height of their power. So we got to see some really great Spartan football. And Spartan Stadium used to be just an electric environment, and there's very much so the same here at Ford Field with this Lions team. Like the big plays, they got everybody out of their seats. People were a lot of people standing up all the time on defense. It just the crowd was just ferocious and hungry, and you could see that transfer down on the field with the team. It was pretty cool. So if you do have the means to go to a game, I certainly recommend it because yeah, it's a pretty special environment down there right now at Ford Field. And I know Jeffrey, you got to see a game last year when they were doing well.
Yeah, when they played the Falcons early in the year, it was the second, third game of the year. But yeah, even then, like before kickoff, it was loud and people were going nuts. And that was only a couple games into the season. We were only starting to kind of be like, "Are we good yet?" kind of thing. But yeah, I can only imagine now. We saw the atmosphere in the playoff games too. I think we're sneakily becoming one of the better kind of home field advantages in the league.
Yeah, this team is certainly starting to impress, and I think you're seeing more and more. It's funny after the Aiden Hutchinson injury, people started to really say, "Oh, they're done. They're not going to make the Super Bowl." After these last two performances against the Vikings and now here against the Titans, it seems more and more we're starting to see again the Lions be the NFC favorite to represent the conference in the NFL or in the Super Bowl. And I think I've seen the pairing that I'm seeing quite a bit, Jeffrey, from a lot of people is a desire to see the Lions and the Buffalo Bills down in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. But we'll have to see. Still a long way to go, but certainly some impressive stuff. And I will also say, because I know neither of us probably chose him as our champ of the week, but Jack Fox, seeing him punt in real life, that man booms punts. Like they are, you can't really appreciate it as well through the TV screen, but he sends those things into like the stratosphere. He kicks the hell out of that ball.
Yeah, and I think we've sneakily had one of the better punters in the league, and I think overall that pays dividends. It's not the sexiest thing in the world, but I mean, when you see it in person, I don't know, man. Seeing him boom that leg, I mean,
it's pretty impressive the way that he can just flip the field position. And yeah, I mean, there's a reason they made him the highest paid punter in the league when they signed him to extension, and he's another guy. It's great. You see so many players around the league that do get the big payday and don't deliver. But so far, with a lot of these guys that Brad Holmes is giving, the extensions to, they are delivering. So it's great to see that they are making some critical choices and allocating money to players who are going to come out there and continue to perform.
Yeah, and I think overall I feel like both of us are in agreement with this, that we just feel like the roster is really well built. Like we like from top to bottom. I mean, we have depth, right? We have great young players who started in the first year with Dan Campbell, and everybody was kind of laughing. I mean, I was too. I was like, "Who is this dude? He wants to eat kneecaps. He's just what is happening right now?" But yeah, even players from when they drafted that first year, they're coming into fruition now. Amon-Ra St. Brown being one of them. It just it feels good, and it's almost a little hard to kind of analyze this game because it was a bit wacky when it comes to just not seeing necessarily the offense have to go down methodical drives. It was all big chunk plays. It was all special teams, good field position plays. So, but yeah, overall, great things.
Yeah, I think we're about to see one of Khalif Raymond's. I think this is the one that he returned 90 yards for the touchdown here. He was definitely a beast. And we were wondering who would step up with JMO out. Now, mind you, it wasn't necessarily, he did have some plays for offense too, but the way that he contributed on special teams definitely made up for that explosiveness that JMO is sort of known for. And so it was great to see. I definitely wasn't the way that I would have thought that they would make up for that production, but they found a way to get it done with Raymond there in the special teams. He was definitely electrifying, and even when he didn't return it to the house, he had a couple of punts where he was certainly knocking on the door anyways. So that doesn't show up in the total yards here as we look at the box score, but certainly was a big factor in this game, how well he played.
I think the Lions lead in return yards this year so far. I'm going to do a quick fact check on that, but I'm pretty sure our special teams, especially the return game, has been just top tier in the NFL as well.
And then that defense forcing turnovers. We'll take a look here at the box score. But again, Jeffrey, kind of surprising, 416 total yards for the Titans compared to 225 here for the Lions. So when you're looking at a 52-14 beatdown, not really the way you would expect that yardage to work out. Only 61 passing for the Lions and 164 rushing, with Jahmyr Gibbs again kind of leading the way there for the Lions. Again, I think he was the FedEx Ground Player of the Week again for the Lions. So continuing to perform well there. But Sonic and Knuckles were definitely both on display here. There were quite a few fans in the stands sporting the Sonic and Knuckles look in support of the.
Were there a lot of people dressed up?
There were a lot of people dressed up for Halloween, so it was pretty cool.
And just to mention, it's punt returns we're actually leading the NFL in right now. Top three is Lions, surprisingly the Browns and the Jaguars, but we are leading the pack when it comes to getting the ball in good field position when our offense takes over.
And with as efficient as the offense has been, that's led to, that's how we're scoring points. We don't need a lot of yards. We just need, a few, and they're delivering, man.
That's what Jared Goff's going to be saying at his Hall of Fame speech. I don't need those yards. I just need those tutties. He's going to throw like 55 this year or something.
No one's ever going to call me Stat Patford. But again, looking here, drilling down a little further, third down efficiency, the offense wasn't like, you can see 3 of 9 on the day compared to 3 of 11 for the Titans. Really the big difference again down here, the penalties and the fumbles and interceptions. Forced 4 takeaways in this game, took care of the ball, didn't commit stupid penalties, and really just, that was the difference for the game. The play that we were getting out of the special teams, the fact that we took care of the ball and forced the Titans to make mistakes. That was the recipe for this 52-14 beatdown, Jeffrey. And,
Mason Rudolph, last time he played us, we tied with them. I think it was Dan Campbell's first year, I believe, where we went 3-13 and something. 2-13 something, but yeah, not this time for Mr. Rudolph.
You think? I mean, I would not be surprised if Dan Campbell held on to that grudge all this time. It would not be the most. That would not be a very surprising thing to learn if he circled it on his calendar. He's like, I'm going to get him back.
Yeah.
All right, Jeffrey. Well, a very exciting win here for the Lions. Again, they improved to 6-1. They stay on top of the NFC North, and we'll talk about that when we get to our Kings of the North segment here. But again, a strong performance here in Week 8 for the Lions. Still a long way to go, but we're starting to see that this team is living up to those expectations of being one of the favorites in the NFC, and hopefully they continue this momentum, because right now they are cooking with fire, Jeffrey.
Yeah, and we for the first time ever in our franchise history, we are the consensus number 1, at least according to the NFL Media Power Rankings, at least, But we are consensus number 1 in many national polls, which a lot of people, especially this week in the morning talk shows and radios and all that, and they're kind of having these debates on who the best team in the NFL is, and we are kind of firmly up there.
Yeah, it's good to see, because, early in the season, defenses were kind of having their way with offenses, right? Teams were scoring, or were struggling to score points and put up yards and all that good stuff. And here the last 2 weeks, we've played 2 of the better defenses in the NFL, in the Titans and the Vikings. Now, with the Titans, they were down L'Jarius Sneed, their top corner, and they did trade their second leading tackler leading into this game. So the defense did have some issues. It wasn't their best defense out there, but still, overall, this was the number 1 rated defense, the number 3 rated pass defense heading into this game. And the Lions were able to come in here and get a pretty impressive victory, albeit in a sort of unorthodox way. The stats definitely don't look like a 52-14 victory, but I'm not going to apologize for that win. That was again, I think a win where this team was efficient. They took care of the ball and looked good in all 3 phases of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's
keep it rolling.
especially as we head into Lambeau next week to take on the Packers. It is a good feather to have in our cap as we look to go and do something that historically has been a struggle for us during our lifetime, getting a victory in Lambeau Field. Thankfully, it's here in the earlier part of the year. It's not that end of the season game because going to Lambeau in the dead of winter is not a fun time.
It's
So
not fun. Although we did end Aaron Rodgers' tenure in Lambeau in the cold, where we got
that we
the
that we
Swazakage.
did.
Swazakage is the infamous end of game interview.
Yeah, it was, and little did we know we might have ended his Packers career, but we might have ended his career in general.
His
Not
career.
looking good with the Jets. We'll talk about that here as we grind the grid, Jeffrey. So hopping into the grind the grid segment, let's take a look. And the week 8 of the season got started on Thursday Night Football with the Minnesota Vikings in action against the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams, of course, led by Matt Stafford in the return of Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, got that 30-20 victory. Sean McVay told everybody that Cooper Kupp was not available for trade, and they came out here and hung 30 on the Vikings, knocking the Vikings down to 5-2 now on the season.
The curse of the Honolulu flu, man.
They are struggling since they played us, and yeah, I mean,
I think it's safe to say that Tennessee will continue
we'll continue the trend.
We'll continue the trend. I don't even know who they're playing next week, but I can almost guarantee.
Yeah, it's maybe a pretty safe bet here. And then our other NFC North team, which we mentioned that is our opponent this weekend, Jeffrey, the Green Bay Packers were in action against Jacksonville, down in Jacksonville, and they were able to pull out a 30-27 victory. This is back-to-back weeks that Brandon McManus, the new signee at kicker, has delivered for the Packers to kick game-winning field goals. But we continue to see out of Jordan Love in this Green Bay Packers team a lot of Brett Favre-esque play, right? You know, he is definitely not afraid to throw that ball. He didn't have the touchdowns this week. He only had the one interception, but Brandon Jacobs contributing there with 127 yards and 2 TDs on the ground. But again, the NFC North just keeps on winning here. We did see, the Vikings the Vikings and the Bears let us down, but the Packers and the Lions keeping it strong, holding down the best division in the NFL.
Yeah, that's right.
And then a tough loss here for Jacksonville. Of course, their season, Jeffrey, has been an ugly one. When we talk about the hot butts segment, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about Doug Peterson here because he got the victory over there in his second game in London, so he was able to make the trip home from the UK. But it still continues to be just a disappointing season for the Jaguars. They fall to 2-6, Jeffrey, and just like the Jets, there's no longer any margin for error. If you're going to make the playoffs at this point, you got to win out. So it just doesn't look good for the Jaguars.
And the NFC or the AFC East, as far as the standings go, there's stiff competition for second place here. All the teams, Miami's 2-5. They got a win this past week, but the Patriots and the Jets, they're both sitting at 2-6. Miami's sitting at 2-5, with Buffalo at 6-2. I mean, they still have somewhat of a chance. It'd be a wild card.
My dad chiming in with Dan Campbell is on the hot seat. Yeah, I suppose he is on the hot seat because they're just winning, and it is that they're on fire. So I guess his seat is too hot, but for different reasons. For different reasons. Speaking of Miami, Jeffrey, this was your lock of the week. Why don't you walk us through this Cardinals-Miami game?
Yeah, so this is Tua Tagovailoa's first game back from him being out with the concussion issues. He did run the ball a couple times. He did slide and protect himself, much to the appreciation of the fans. They very much were very excited when he took the slide instead of going for extra yardage on one of those particular long runs. But it wasn't enough to stop the Cardinals because they ended up pulling out that last field goal to win it. And it's just a tough loss for Miami because you got your star quarterback back. You your offense finally is doing something. Like they showed way more consistency. They showed way more production as well with him back on there. But it just wasn't enough. So it's just ultimately a back-breaking loss for them, especially because they've had such a bad year. And now, I don't know. It's almost like, do you just rest Tua for the rest of the year and kind of look to next year if you're already sitting here at 2-5?
It's a tough question. It's a tough question there. And I like it. Edwards calling out there the nice call on your guarantee. That is, of course, my father guaranteed a 10-point Titans victory. So if you can go ahead and just guarantee those 10-point victories for our opponents every week,
yes,
and we beat them, put 52 up on them, that I'll take that. I'll take that any day of the week. Sticking in the AFC East, Jeffrey, and of course you talked about this game a little bit already, but the Jets and the Patriots, a divisional showdown. What happened here in this game?
Yeah, the Patriots are not supposed to be good, and they're not. I mean, that's it is what it is. They're 2-6. I mean, their defense has shown up in games, but they start out Jacoby Brissett at the beginning of the year. They turned to the rookie Drake May. He went out with a concussion, right? So he's not all the way right. But the Jets are supposed to win this game by all accounts, right? Aaron Rodgers didn't even play that bad of a game, right? He was 17 for 28, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns. But Jacoby Brissett with the 132 yards getting it done. This team, the Jets, it's absolute. The wheels are gone off this wagon. It's just not good. It's almost like, do you have a fire sale here? And I don't know. That would require their ownership to just, I don't know, do something right for a change. I don't know.
Yeah, it is not a good situation there in New York, and this season again, any margin for error is now gone. So if they are going to go on a run and somehow salvage this season, they have to run the table, and that is not going to be an easy task at all. So it's doesn't look good if you're a Jets fan. Doesn't look good at all.
It makes the Saleh firing every single week just look more and more head scratching. The defense played worse as soon as he left. Clearly, changing the play caller and or the head coach has not helped. So it's just it's not good, man.
It does seem like they got rid of the best coach they had on staff, and that is certainly a problem. It has not looked better. So I'm not usually a fan of midseason firings because I don't really feel like you gain anything in general. And the Jets are just kind of helping to prove that theory right because it has not looked better. But something that did look better here in a surprise, Jeffrey, why don't you talk to us about this last second heroics here that we got out of Cleveland as they surprised the Ravens?
Yeah, Dustin Hopkins hit a field goal here. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the first quarter. Cedric Tillman got that 38 yard pass touchdown. They went for 2, but they didn't get it. But ultimately, quarterback change due to injury. Jameis Winston, famous Jameis, is out there slinging it, being less afraid to throw it more than 4 yards downfield like Deshaun Watson was. But 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks, which I would not have bet on. I would have banged the over on number of picks, but they got it done, and they were able to run an offense that looked productive. They were able to move the ball better than they have pretty much all year, and their players seem to play really well, especially on offense. So it seems like a lot of the problem was Deshaun Watson. It makes having him kind of be in there to begin with just kind of questionable as far as like, what are you doing with your, like, are you trying to win? Are you trying to, are you forced to start this guy? But that problem kind of essentially just took care of itself. And now we've got Jameis Winston, who your dad is right on this one, as rarely as he is right. He is right on this one. Jameis Winston is a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson.
Hey, even a wrong clock is right 2 times a day. So, or a dead clock's right 2 times a day. So, it happens. And 334 yards, 3 TDs for Jameis Winston here, Jeffrey. Just it seems like the way to attack this Baltimore defense is through the air.
Yeah, they've been carved up through the air for multiple weeks in a row now. It's it's gonna be it's going to be interesting to see when they face some of the better passing attacks here.
Yeah, most certainly. And it's going to be interesting to see, too, what happens beyond this year with Deshaun Watson. As my dad points out there, $230 million, of course, is what they're on the hook for. But, I think they almost need to take a page out of the Tigers, where we ended up just saying, we're going to eat the money to bench him and just ride, put Deshaun Watson on the bench and try and move on the best you can and just take the cap hit because sometimes players are just not living up to expectations, and you got to do what you got to do.
Even so, say he makes a full recovery, and we're back. Well, it's going to be he won't be back for next year, probably, right? We're too far into the season for an ACL return at the beginning of next year. So, like, you're looking at possibly Jameis Winston starting again next year if he does well here. You could have some options in the off season. We'll kind of it'll be really telling to see kind of what ownership in the front office does about that situation this summer, because they've got a very good defense, but there's no way they're going to be able to keep everybody long term.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a financial burden they've placed on themselves, which makes it definitely tricky to maneuver around. But it almost seems like that would be, especially with what you're seeing now with Jameis Winston out there, it seems like that would be it's almost better to have the highest paid guy and then just not have him play than to stick him out there and just be bad. So,
ouch. That's brutal, man. It's better to pay this guy a bunch of money for him not to play. It's just brutal.
It reminds me of that line in Moneyball where Brad Pitt's character tells the guy that they're paying. I'm not paying you that. The Yankees are paying you $15 million to play to not have you play for them. That's what they think of you. It's like okay, all right. So, yeah, definitely interesting there to see how that situation is going to play out for Cleveland.
Yeah, and on the other side, we'll have to see. I think with the AFC North, it seems like it's shaking out to be against the Steelers and the Ravens here, with Cincinnati kind of falling off too. So this division's getting a little bit more spicy, I think, with Jameis kind of there, and having the Browns defense is going to keep them in games. But they have some ground to make up.
Yeah, it's going to be curious to see too if the Browns do keep that defense intact, because the Terminator was I don't know if you saw his Halloween costume that Miles Garrett came to the stadium with, but he went hard with that Terminator costume. He's been rumored to be on the trading block as well as Darius Smith. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do make any trades with that defense, or now they hold this sort of try and keep everything intact and try and move forward. It's going to be interesting to see what plays out too from that perspective for their defense.
Yeah, send them our way. We could use a pass. We could use an extra pass rusher.
Yeah, I wouldn't say no to an extra pass rusher. My first pick would not be a guy who's ripped a helmet off someone and then hit him with it, to be fair, but at the same time,
that's true.
When your best pass rusher was at the game and he had his foot in a cast and elevated, yeah, I'll certainly, I'm not going to be too picky.
Just keep your helmet on.
And the best part, well, I wouldn't say the best part, but the funny thing, of course, being that it was Mason Rudolph, of course, the guy he tore the helmet off of and tried to hit in the head with it. So
I think they were waiting to get this game out of the way, and then
they didn't want to run it back. No malice at the palace or anything like that. I got you. All right, Jeffrey. How about this Philadelphia-Cincinnati game? And at the beginning of the season, I think two teams everyone had as playoff contenders.
Yeah, and Philadelphia, I think, is starting to turn that narrative around about them being kind of falling off, because they did not look good the first few games here in this season. But they're rolling now. Saquon Barkley has been a fantastic pickup for him. He had another great day rushing the ball today or on Sunday. Jalen Hurts is starting to come on. We saw the deep ball going a little bit more with them, but I think they're starting to turn themselves around, which bodes bad news for Dallas, who's kind of barely hanging in there in the NFC East. But on the other side with the Bengals, it's just Joey B can't. I mean, he's doing everything he can out there. Right? I mean, he's not
Mhm.
playing that bad, and him himself is not great, but their defense has absolutely become a liability for them.
Yeah, it's definitely uh, thankfully at 3-5, they still have a little wiggle room, I think, but as competitive as the AFC North is, it's certainly not a lot. So they're almost at the same point with, the Jets and the Dolphins and those other teams where they're running out of room margin of error there. So it's getting tough for them. And then Jeffrey, as a little preview, something to get you to start thinking for Sunday's episode. I'm thinking of the roaring or boring question of, has Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry done enough in your mind to reset the value of running backs in the free agent market?
Oh,
Because they both
uh,
have been big contributors here to the success of their teams. And I
I'm absolutely willing to pay running backs more. I mean, their fall off based on when their actual prime is just absolutely staggering, right? Like it can just happen so quickly
Mhm.
after a year you've been good. I mean, look at Dalvin Cook. He was like lighting it up in Minnesota, and then like 1 year later, he kind of just absolutely fell off the earth and was just barely trying to get on teams now, right? Because they take a lot of
Yeah.
punishment. It's not an easy position, so I would be more than happy to pay, but I'm not a billionaire NFL owner, so they were probably less likely to pay because they're all about asset management. To them, even the quarterbacks are getting way out of control. So there's no way they're going to let another position start to climb up into some of these upper echelons.
Yeah, and of course, Ed there, we might be a little bit biased. He's a fan of the roaring for the two back system, and of course, the
Yeah,
Lions with Gibbs and Montgomery certainly on display. So he's going with Bourne on this one. But I will say that I think, and to my dad's point there too, the offensive line is also a big contributor to it. But I will say there are some backs that are built different. I mean, there's definitely a difference between Adrian Peterson and Mike Tolbert or something like that. Like,
right.
there are just some running backs that can be that sort of franchise anchoring running back. And yeah, you don't necessarily know how many seasons you're going to have with them. Terrell Davis was another guy who was really great. He's a Hall of Famer, but certainly didn't have the same longevity that we were used to seeing out of running backs. But I think Saquon and Derrick Henry here certainly, if a guy seems like he can be that guy, that main running back, I think we may see teams start to value that a little bit more because it had been something that here in very recently has sort of been going down in priority. But you can see like what Saquon and Derrick Henry are doing for their teams. It can be a big difference.
Yeah, and you're right about the offensive line and the scheme. I mean, look at Kyle Shanahan. They can like plug and play pretty much any running back, and they're gonna have an efficient and monstrous day against any team out there. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, next up here, Jeffrey. We
ooh,
had the AFC South matchup between the Colts and the Texans. The Texans were able to get the victory in this game, Jeffrey, 23-20. I think the big piece of headline coming out of this game was when Anthony Richardson he ran for play and then tapped out on third down, asking to be subbed out because he couldn't catch his breath in that game. And there's been a lot made out of that. Pat
a lot of
McAfee
yeah, a
tweeting
lot,
instantly. I've never seen a franchise quarterback do that. Uh,
yeah,
it,
yeah.
it's a strange thing going on there with the
Have
Colts.
you ever got most of the former NFL players have come out pretty much being like, you can't do that. That's terrible. Like, why would you ever even think about that? That's giving up on your team. Apparently, the locker room didn't take too kindly to it either because it was reported before the show here an hour ago that they are going to Joe Flacco next week. They're benching Anthony Richardson. They said they're not giving up on him, but they are benching him for this year. And I think, in my personal opinion, I think they were facing a bit of a revolt there based on how the former NFL players kind of reacted in the media. I can only imagine just being on some of these players on the team.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a weird situation. Anthony Richardson has shown a lot of promise. Of course, he's been dealing with a lot of injuries in his young career. But it definitely seems like comparatively, you look across the sideline at CJ Stroud. I think he's certainly established himself as the franchise quarterback for the Texans. They definitely feel comfortable and confident with him moving forward. But it's going to be interesting to see what does happen with Anthony Richardson because, as both you and Nick pointed out there, and they're going to Flacco. They think he gives them the best chance to win now. So is this something where they're going to try and salvage this relationship moving forward? They just feel like Flacco gives them the best chance to win now, or I mean, can it be salvaged if you bench him for Flacco? I don't even know.
I mean, they were playing a lot better with Flacco. I think their defense is all right. I think Jonathan Taylor is can be sneakily pretty good. I think he had a great game today or on Sunday. But yeah, I think this division could get competitive because Houston doesn't seem like they're as strong as they were, at least as dominant as they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
So this division is still in a competitive state. And yeah, I think I wonder though, if he did not pull himself out, would he be getting another game here?
Yeah, and then another thing, as you mentioned, the Texans not looking as dominant. They did lose Stephon Diggs in this game too, due to an apparent knee injury. So that would put Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins out, putting sort of Tank Dell as the wide receiver number one there. Going to be interesting to see how that impacts the team moving forward because CJ Stroud, again, just kind of like Sam Laporta last season, they had such great rookie seasons that almost by just pure nature, your sophomore season is going to be a slump because of how well you played your rookie season.
Kind of
so it's you kind of you did so well, you set yourself up for failure in year two, and not necessarily failure, but
as a Tank Dell owner last year and not a Tank Dell owner this year, I'm okay with it. I'm all right.
feeling okay about it.
Feeling okay about not picking him again this year. But he's about to have to step up. And Nico Collins is expected to come back, I think, this week or the following week. But Stephon Diggs is out for the year with the ACL, so they do not have him for the remainder of this campaign.
And maybe, Jeffrey, I know we've sort of talked about Stephon Diggs and the impact he can have on locker rooms and teams. Certainly, again, don't like to see players get injured, but perhaps a blessing in disguise.
Yeah,
I don't know.
If they start playing well, I might be starting to ask questions.
could be something. And of course, even though they haven't looked as good as last season, they are still 6-2. So it hasn't been pretty, but they are getting the job done there down in Houston. All right, Jeffrey. Then, of course, the 52-14 beatdown that the Lions had at home against the Titans. We've talked about that game. 6-1, loving it. First time since 1956. Great times.
Yep.
An NFC South matchup here, Jeffrey. Of course, Tampa Bay, they just last week lost Mike Evans for a few weeks. They lost Chris Godwin for the season. So Baker Mayfield and that offense had to sort of rely on new weapons. And given the shootout that was the first meeting between these two teams, which just was 2 weeks ago, certainly not surprised that the Falcons got the win here, 31-26. You could see on Baker's face after that Chris Godwin injury last week that was kind of a big demoralizing sort of injury that they took. He had to pop the Zyn pouch in on the sideline to try and help deal with the stress because, it was, it's one thing if you lose, but it's another thing when you're losing just because people are getting hurt and that's impacting, the team. So it's tough to see. I think this Buccaneers team is talented, but the players that are talented are just kind of hurt, and it kind of leaves them in an awkward spot. Whereas the Falcons had their full complement of weapons and were able to get this victory here. Kirk Cousins did bounce back. He had 4 touchdowns in this game. Kyle Pitts there was another Kyle Pitts spotting on the season. He had 4 receptions for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. Of course, Cade Otton on the other side. It's funny, this weekend, or it was National Tight End Day on Sunday. And Kyle Pitts and Cade Otton both got the message as they both had 2 touchdowns. Cade Otton had 9 receptions for 81 yards and the 2 TDs. So
I think everybody was celebrating National Tight Ends Day because we had
Sam Laporta leading the way.
We had a record number of tight ends receptions, of yardage. The creator himself, George Kittle, had himself a day as well. So I think everybody was feeling themselves in the season.
Absolutely. And the Falcons also feeling themselves, Jeffrey, now 5-3 in first place in the NFC South, taking the lead over there. It's going to be interesting to see if Tampa Bay can continue to fight and catch them. They have dropped 2 games now to the Falcons, so definitely a big advantage there to the Falcons in the race for the NFC South. But the Saints and the Panthers are both terrible. So, the Buccaneers are clearly the second best team. But again, it's going to be interesting to see, with the injuries that they do have. Mike Evans is at least coming back at some point this season, it looks like. But it's going to be interesting to see how many wins they can get while they're sort of waiting to get him back. Because, if you look just at the Rams in the NFC West, certainly they were struggling without Kupp and Nakua. They were definitely putting up a fight and were in close games, but being down to your top 2 receiving targets is a big hit for any team.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to be difficult because with Baker, I think. I like him. I like his gunslinging. I just like him as a player. But having Godwin and Evans out there makes up for a lot of mistakes, right? They make quarterbacks look good, and it's going to be difficult matching the production of both those guys gone.
Absolutely. And then Jeffrey, in what was maybe the least sexiest game of the Sunday, we had the Chargers getting the 26.
Not to Mr. Harbaugh, he loves this stuff, man.
So these are the types of games that get him excited.
It's a fever dream for him, man.
But 26-8 victory there. Chargers improved to 4-3 on the season. The Saints fall to 2-6 after their hot start. Spencer Rattler, of course, playing again in place of the injured Derek Carr. He went 12 of 24 for 156 yards with no touchdowns. So kind of struggles across the board there.
At some point, too, right? They put in someone third stringer, I believe.
I think towards the end of the game, yeah. So it was not great. The offense for the Saints definitely struggled. Their first points, they got a safety in the first quarter. And then they got some field goals there, Jeffrey. So no touchdowns on the day for this team. And then if you look at the Chargers side of things, J.K. Dobbins had his touchdown on the ground. Ladd McConkey, despite being questionable heading into the game, Jeffrey, 6 receptions, 111 yards, and 2 TDs.
I had a feeling. I think Ladd McConkey is going to be a sleeper, great fantasy football player this year. And I'm not just saying that because I picked him up and I started him this week. I might be a little biased there, but I think there's a reason why he drafted him. I think he plays very sound football, and he's definitely a Harbaugh kind of guy.
Yeah, and certainly of course, they got rid of Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, their top 2 guys. So there's plenty of opportunity in that depth chart for a young rookie to thrive because they looking across the board, you got Ladd McConkey, you got Josh Palmer, Will Dissly, Jalen Reagor. Like there isn't like a real solid clearly defined number 1 guy there. So certainly an opportunity for Ladd McConkey to carve himself out a role here. So it's great to see him stepping up here in week 8, and we'll have to see if he can continue because certainly saw some good things out of him in Justin Herbert here against the Saints. Then, Jeffrey, my lock of the week, I decided to add insult to injury and take on a Seattle game, and the Bills did not disappoint in this one. They got the victory here against the Seahawks with a 31-10 final score. And, it was almost to my own detriment, really, because I am starting Geno Smith as my fantasy quarterback in quite a few leagues. And I wanted them to lose, but I didn't want them, Geno still could have had a couple touchdowns. It would have been nice, but this the Seahawks offense definitely stalled out here against the Bills. And the Josh Allen looked good. James Cook coming back into this game as the main bell cow had 111 yards and 2 TDs. So the Bills getting things done here. And you had a Keon Coleman touchdown pass reception in this game, representing Sparty. So good stuff there. But pretty solid win for the AFC East leading Bills. And then, with the Seahawks losing here, dropping to 4-4, that NFC West is definitely, I think, maybe one of the most wide open divisions in the NFC currently. You kind of have everyone, sort of huddling around each other. So despite all of the injuries to the Rams, getting Puka Nacua back and Cooper Kupp here, they may be able to make a run because, again, currently the Cardinals at 4-4 are in first place. The Rams are at 3-4. Pretty much all those teams hovering around 500, Jeffrey.
Yeah, and I think the Cardinals they haven't looked good for a couple games this year, but overall, I think that they're just getting better and better. I think they looked great as far as being coached last year. You could tell that it was starting to work for them, but you're absolutely right. I think with all these injuries, it's going to make that division wide open, and why not the Cardinals?
Yeah. I think, Champy, you definitely have a great chance. And as you say there, you're in first place currently on that 2-game winning streak. So with everything that's going on, the 49ers, all their injuries, as Jeffrey said, the Seahawks I think the Seahawks are the team that's the most interesting because they're not dealing with any big injuries. Like the 49ers, the Rams, definitely injuries have played a big part into where they're at in the season. Seattle, yes, they have a new head coach, but they've been pretty much injury. I mean, their defense, they did have some injuries there early on. That was one of the reasons we were able to beat them, as we were able to take advantage of the injuries to their front seven. But from at least an offensive perspective, they've been rather healthy, and that offense hasn't looked that great. Now they do have a defensive-minded head coach in Mike McDaniel, or Mike McDonald there. Coming over from the Ravens. But, you would think with all of the offensive talent they do have at the skill position, DK, Tyler Lockett, Ninjigba, like they have plenty of weapons there. Charbonnet and why am I forgetting the running back's name?
Oh, Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, I should K3. They have plenty of tools there, so it's kind of surprising to see that offense isn't sort of leading the way for them.
Yeah, and on the Bills side, just another notch in the wind to kind of step on the rest of those other teams in the AFC East. I think it's their division to win.
Tightening the screws. Yep.
Yeah, and they did make a trade here to get Amari Cooper in the building, right? So they give some extra help to Josh Allen. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do something else as well. Maybe a pass rusher. I know a lot of teams are looking for pass rushers right now, including us.
Yeah, especially with Von Miller currently suspended. Yeah.
But
they're certainly missing out there. But yeah, it'll be interesting. They have no problem succeeding in the regular season and getting to the playoffs. It'll be interesting to see what happens when they do inevitably if they do run into Kansas City in the playoffs, because that has been their kryptonite. And of course, the Chiefs, we'll talk about them in a moment, Jeffrey, but still undefeated. But before we get there, Jeffrey, why don't you talk to us about this Bears-Commanders game that got super spicy there at the end?
It did. So it was looking like, on all accounts, the Bears were going to win this, but Jaden Daniels uncorked a Hail Mary that ended up bouncing off of a player's hand who ran in because he was not paying attention to the play. Ran in, he tipped the ball up, and the Washington receiver caught it in the end zone easy. Just hilariously bad. He was out there taunting the fans, and the play was already like 30 yards deep, and he missed the dude he was supposed to seal. It was awful. But a great moment for Washington and Washington's fan base. I think this is like one of those kind of marquee moments. It's like finally, like after all these years of pain, this is like our team's doing good, and we just had like an electrifying win here. I think it's fantastic for them.
Did you hear about Caleb Williams sending the ducks that looked like Jalen Daniels to the Commanders facility?
What? No. Wait.
Yeah, what? I will fact check myself here live, but I'm pretty sure that was a thing. He sent ducks to Commanders.
Well, I mean, he sent a duck of a passing game, only 135 yards, 10 for 24. So he came back crashing down to earth after showing a few weeks of improvement here. But I think. There's if they haven't already had their film room meeting, it's going to be spicy for Mr. What's his Tyreek Stevenson. Tyreek Stevenson.
Oh, just checking on myself here. Maybe Caleb Williams, or is this fake? Is this real or fake? I hate now that I live in a time where I see things and I'm like, oh, that's hilarious, but it could just be.
It's just too, yeah.
It seemed too good to be true, but at the same time, I've also found out that a lot of people do not like Caleb Williams significantly. So he gets a lot more. There are a lot more fake stories out there about him that make him seem like he is much more of an awful person than he actually is. So I'll walk that back because I have not been able to
we'll see if it's real and report back.
Verify that, yeah. But if I do find the official story, I will bring it back out. It looks like someone had to have made this, right? Here, I will. If we come here quickly to this screen. So this is. I will. Let's see. We want to replace this real quick. We want to screen share. We want this. So this right here was I had seen it on Twitter. I don't, and I'll double check it here. But this allegedly, what was told to me or what I read on Twitter was that Caleb Williams had sent these to the Commanders facility because Jaden Daniels was dealing with that the rib injury, and it was unsure if he would play in this game against the Bears. So he was sending these there to say that he was ducking out of the matchup, is what Twitter alleged. Mind you, since Twitter is now X and Elon's taken over, it's become a lot harder to trust what you're seeing on the platform. So I'm going to walk it back. I don't know if that's a real story, but certainly if it is, that is top tier trash talking, but like you have to win in that case.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If you're sending rubber ducks to your opponent for trolling them, you got to be able to back up that troll.
I have to imagine it's not real, because if it was real, especially after that cornerback who may be showing up in my champ of the week, or Trump of the week, if you're gonna do that after your rookie quarterback sends the other team duck, like I feel like that would be a bigger part of the story if it had happened. So I'm gonna have to go with fake news on X is what that really was, but spicy fake news.
Yeah, and that game really separated kind of the bottom half there of the NFC East, with Dallas being at 3-4 and New York being at 2-6 now. So it's Washington's division right now, but Philadelphia is heating up. So we'll see when they play.
Absolutely. And the Bears are in danger now. They're at 4-3. They're the only NFC North team in danger of not having a winning record now. So they're letting us down. They're letting us down there, Jeffrey.
We can't carry everybody up here in the NFC North.
But
we can't all be winners here.
Well, a team that has only been winners on the season, Jeffrey.
I thought they were going to get got again this week, but they didn't. They keep rolling. Yep, they keep rolling. They find ways to win. It was 27-20, so fairly close game, but Patrick Mahomes getting it done. They've got Kareem Hunt being fairly productive, even though when he runs, it looks like he's running in slow motion now. But they just need someone to hold on to the ball, because they run a lot of power options now, or a power run game now. And on the other side, Gardner Minshew, he played himself a game, but ultimately, a turnover. It was a fumble that kind of cost them that. But I don't know how you can stop this team, right? I think their defense looks a lot better than what they looked like last year. Mahomes doesn't have to put up video game numbers. Kelsey doesn't have to put up video game numbers to kind of keep up with that. There was a trade that they just acquired just a couple hours ago was announced. Joshua Uche from the Patriots traded over to him. How do they keep getting away with this, man?
Yeah, I don't know why other teams in the AFC, like, it's one thing if it's like an NFC team that's trading over something, I guess, but like, why, if you're another AFC team, do you keep giving this dynasty weapons to use against you? It doesn't make sense.
That one year everybody kept trading players to the Eagles, and it's like, man, Howie Roseman, man, you got to calm down. Save some for the rest of us.
Just keep on eating and they just keep on winning, Jeffrey, and it's a problem. It is a problem for the rest of the league.
And this actually on the Chiefs side, this was the one of the kind of bigger, I guess, contention points when it came to kind of consensus number one, the kind of the media buzz about who is the best team in the NFL, and it's Kansas City and us kind of being at the top, but I think we've looked a lot better than they have. I know their defense has been pretty good and has locked things down, but I think from like top to bottom, from unit to unit on their teams, I think we are looking a lot better than they are. Of course, I say that now. They're still the defending champs. They still have to prove me wrong. Every week they look this close to losing it, but
somehow they just keep holding on.
Keep going.
Just keep going. Then, Jeffrey, we had another AFC West team here in action against the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young back under center. What happened here Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, so the Denver Broncos took it away 28-14. Bo Nix had a great day, throwing 3 touchdowns, no picks, 284 yards. Bryce Young coming back in for the injured Andy Dalton. He didn't actually play too bad. He did have to throw 37 times, but they were kind of in that due to that explosion in the second quarter where Denver dropped 21 on them. And yeah, I'm glad I started Bo Nix this week instead of Dak Prescott. That was my kind of my 2 quarterbacks that I had, and going against this Panthers defense, it's going to be a good time for whoever the offense is. They're going to be eaten against this. And it was also reported, I think maybe like 5 hours ago or so, that Deontay Johnson was traded to the Ravens. So Carolina offloading some more assets there. They're about to get a whole lot worse. And yeah. Sean Payton throwing shade at the Panthers in the press conference. He's like, "Oh yeah, they're not a good offense." It's like, "Oh yeah, no duh, you don't." I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, with Devontae Adams traded and
there.
Cooper Kupp taking off the trading block. I know Deontay Johnson and Christian Kirk were like the 2 guys that were now popping up as being the top trade targets left at the receiver position. And of course, Christian Kirk, I think he broke his collarbone against the Packers. So unfortunately, he's no longer, that took him off the market. And then that left Deontay Johnson there. So going to be interesting to see. Of course, he came from the Steelers, signed with was traded down to the Panthers last season, and now he's headed back to the AFC North with the Panthers. I'm sure he'll have he's going to enjoy seeing his old teammates here when the Ravens and the Steelers meet up.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm actually almost surprised that Deontay Johnson didn't get traded to the Chiefs. Just a little surprised.
That's probably for the best. That would have been. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is bad enough. I don't. But then Jeffrey, this was one of the games we talked about in roaring or boring about who needed the win more. Sunday Night Football. Talk to me about this 49ers Cowboys game.
Yeah. So on National Tight End Day, George Kittle lit it up, 6 receptions, 128 yards, and a tutty. Dallas didn't come to play for the first 3 quarters of the game, kind of like how they have been all year. Super interesting. Dak Prescott, him being the highest paid quarterback in the league, has not been playing good. 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, and most of that came when they were down and they just had to keep slinging it. CeeDee Lamb ended up having a good day, but they can't stop on anybody on defense. They are relying on kind of their 2 stars to kind of carry them here to victory, but there's really nothing else around them. Their running game's not so great. Ezekiel Elliott, yes, he led the charge, but guess how much? 34 yards on 10 carries. That's not good. He did score a goal line touchdown, but overall, it's just not good. It's running game is terrible. I don't think Dak and CeeDee Lamb, as good as CeeDee Lamb is, and as good as Dak could be, I don't think it's enough to make up for what else is going on around them.
Yeah, I think the crazy thing too is of course, Brock Purdy has yet to get his payday as the starting quarterback for San Francisco. So Dak makes almost what he makes in a quarter. So that Brock Purdy makes the entire season, which is just an absolutely ridiculous stat.
Yeah.
Just that you can have two starting quarterbacks for two franchises, and that their salaries are just that different is just mind blowing. Um, but yeah, definitely. I mean, again, it keeps the 49ers in what is a very competitive NFC West, keeps them alive. And then for the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy, man, he's been on that hot butts list at 3-4. They're still have, I guess, a little wiggle room, but they're definitely looking up at the Commanders and the Eagles now. And it's you know, it's kind of a now or never type thing for this Cowboys team.
Yeah. And
Uh,
fun fact, I don't think Dallas has won at home since since they jobbed us with that win on that ineligible receiving touchdown.
I'm okay with them that giving them a curse of some, and even if that not just like a season, if that wants to be like a 50-year curse or something like that for what they've done, that's fine. I'm okay with that.
Not a home win for 50 years. That would be insane. That would be so insane. But I'm all for that. Let's do that.
What happens when you wrong us in such a fashion? And then Jeffrey, to end Week 8, we had a Monday night matchup with the Giants and the Steelers, and Russell Wilson now in the Steelers feeling dangerous, just like his new Primanti Brothers sandwich there. 2-0 now as the starting quarterback for the Steelers. And again, he's the running game. We saw Najee Harris again have over 100 yards rushing in back-to-back weeks. George Pickens, he didn't have a touchdown, but he did have 4 receptions for 74 yards. So it seems like they're being able to get the diva wide receiver involved a little bit more, and just things seem like they are trending the right way here for the Steelers. They have that great defense. TJ Watt and Cameron Hayward are definitely leading the charge for them on the defense. And this offense is being efficient and, not turning the ball over, getting things done with Russ. And, they did look good with Justin Fields as the quarterback, but they've looked just as good here, if not better, with Russell Wilson through 2 games. Of course, they were playing the Giants, who no one had as being a team really pushing the envelope here this season. So the Giants are 2-6, Steelers 6-2. 2 teams headed in very different directions.
Yes.
But it's still, a solid victory here for the Steelers. And good to see Russell Wilson. It would have been kind of disappointing to see his career, especially with how good he was with Seattle, and if it was just like with the Bronco years, because they were definitely down years for him. So I'm glad to see that it'd be like if Aaron Rodgers' career ends with the Jets seasons being like his last seasons. It'd be like, yeah, you had a good career, but
put some money on that one.
I mean, I don't feel as bad if it happens to Aaron Rodgers as I do for Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's at least seems not as off the deep end in some regards as Aaron Rodgers does. Aaron Rodgers definitely comes off as a little bit more of a diva. Although, I mean, there were some rumbles about Russ and certain songs not being able to be played in the locker room and whatnot. But
Russ is a really weird dude, but I don't think he's like malicious. It doesn't seem like not that I'm saying Aaron Rodgers is malicious. When Russell Wilson's weird, it comes off as corny and fake. When Aaron Rodgers is weird, it comes off as being a gigantic douchebag. So, I tend to not like douchebags. So,
I think I'm there with you. They're both odd, but they have different vibes in their oddness, and it comes off differently.
Plus, Russ has got some awesome catchphrases wherever he goes. I mean, you gotta love the commitment to that.
That's true. He's committed to the craft.
Yes.
All right, Jeffrey. Well, that has been Grinding the Grid. If we take a look here now at our hot butts, you can see there's some new people showing up here. We have Brian Dable, I think at 2-6. He deserves a spot here. Aaron Rodgers getting added in here because, at this point, Saul is gone. You've gotten everything you've wanted in terms of the players they've brought in, and it isn't working. So I think he definitely it's burning down there in New York. What's going on with the Jets is a terrible situation. And then I did add Shane Steichen here. Now I think the move to swap in Joe Flacco is an interesting one and could be something that could get him off the hot seat because Joe Flacco, I think, is playing very well. But I think out of everyone on the list at the moment, he is probably the best shot of getting off here. Also, potentially Kevin Stefanski too, if Jameis keeps playing well, because perhaps he can make the argument to Jimmy Haslam. Although Jimmy Haslam in the Browns owner is going to do whatever he wants to do anyways. But at least he can say, "Look, man, with Deshaun, it was a mess. With Jameis, we were competitive. I don't know what to tell you. Whoever you're going to bring in a head coach, they're going to have the same issues. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see. But with Shane Steichen, I like the move to put in Flacco, and that defense hasn't been as good as I think a lot of people thought they could be for the Colts. They certainly have struggled at times, but part of that too is just the offense not maintaining possession and turning the ball over and things like that. So going to be interesting to see how things play out for them now with Flacco moving forward. So he could be a guy I could see getting off the list, but the rest of these guys, they're pretty firmly got their butts in the fire, Jeffrey.
Yeah. We could also make like a most punchable face in the NFL league with this. With some of the
with a lot of the guys on this list.
The guys on here, especially Nick Sirianni there on the right. That man's got a punchable face. Maybe I just hate on Philadelphia too much.
No. They booed Santa Claus. It's understandable. Understandable. And then, Jeffrey, for our Kings of the North here, the Lions maintaining our position on top, looking to have our first ever back-to-back NFC North titles. The Packers now move into the number 2 spot. They are 0-1 in the division, but are the only other team besides us to have 6 wins. So that does move them up to number 2, passing the Vikings, who do have right now the head-to-head victory. And then the bottom dwellers at the moment are the Bears at 4-3. Again, the only one of our teams in the NFC North that is threatening to fall back to the 500 mark. So they need to pick it up because we are the best division in the league. And when we win this back-to-back title, Jeffrey, I want that to be the case. I want everyone to know that not only was the NFC North the best of the division, but the Lions were the best team in the division.
That's right. Yeah, that would be absolutely great. And I think, I think Minnesota will bounce back. That's my prediction. I think Green Bay will continue to be solid. I think it's going to be competitive all year long. But I'm not sure about the Bears, though. Their defense is good and they look spicy at times, but I think they really need Caleb Williams and kind of the offense to keep together to hang with the big boys here in the division.
Yeah, and it's gonna be interesting to see. Certainly, I think Matt Eberflus was a guy who I think is going to be bouncing back and forth from being on the hot seat. So until they actually get it figured out there, I think early in the season he would have probably been on there if we were doing it. Then they started to win, kind of got himself out of trouble. But there was certainly some questionable decision making in that loss to the Commanders that starts to invite back this idea that maybe a coaching change in Chicago wouldn't be the craziest thing if they don't continue to win there. So going to be interesting to see how things play out. But Jeffrey, to end the show here, we're going to go ahead and do our champs and chumps of the week. For champ, I am going to go with, because I figured you may be going with Khalif Raymond, and I didn't want us to double pick because he was outstanding.
You may pick Khalif Raymond. I was going to go somewhere else, actually.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm still going to give it to Alex Anzalone. Okay. Being there at the game and seeing the impact that he was having in the game, he is a beast, man. He's running around. The flow is just going. He's making plays. Oof, he had a big impact in that game.
Troy Polamalu out there.
It was great to see, man. Flying around, making plays, stepping up for this team. And so Alex Anzalone, that's who I'm going with as my champ of the week. Definitely stepping up, showing why he's got that C for the Lions.
Yeah. And I was very close to going with Khalif Raymond because he's been stepping up. Big impact on special teams, making some great plays as a wide receiver. But I'm actually going to go out into the NFL this week, and I am going to give our champ to the rookie Jaden Daniels. Playing with a rib injury is very difficult when you're a quarterback, much less a rookie quarterback, right? And he did enough to win. Clearly, it was affecting him, right? He wasn't as efficient as he has been, and he was playing a good defense. So there's that factor too. But in front of your embattled franchise, you're finally getting like some buzz, and you throw that Hail Mary to catch that ball. I think you got to give it to him. Washington should feel good. Jaden Daniels should feel good about it.
I like the pick. It's great to see that he's not only a front runner for offensive rookie of the year, but certainly I think it belongs in that MVP discussion as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think Lamar, Jaden Daniels, Jared Goff. It's going to be interesting to see who ultimately can bring that award home. I think it's going to be a very competitive vote this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how things play out. And then Jeffrey, I had teased it earlier, but my chump of the week is Bears defensive back Tyreek Stevenson. He was busy taunting the fans, sort of counting his chickens before they hatched. Then he tried to make a play on the ball. I don't blame him for that part of it. Like he tried to make a play on the ball, knock it down. He tipped it, and it all, Noah Brown ended up catching it. I'm not going to fault him for that part of it. It's the things before then when he was messing around, taunting the fans. You could have just waited. You had one play left. Make the play, knock it down, then taunt the fans. That's all you have to do. I'm okay with some back and forth banter between players and fans as long as things stay respectful. But in that instance, man, you gotta seal the deal before you do the taunting, because otherwise it ends up on Sports Center and then just on a loop, man. Everyone sees it over and over again.
Yep.
And you have different media personalities saying, oh, they should, bench him for the first drive of the game, because you don't want to invite that type of criticism into your play. He's been a solid second round pick for the Bears so far. He's played well this season. And to now you're just inviting that unwanted criticism into like your game and your character and things like that, just because of a moment of sort of just having too much fun. You need to tone it down.
You've lost in the sauce out there for a bit.
Most certainly. All right, Jeffrey, who's your chump this week?
My chump this week, I got to give it to Anthony Richardson, AR-15. I think, taking yourself out of the game. I'm not a professional athlete by any means. I get tired, right? I'm picking up my laundry, going up my stairs, and I'm like, damn, those are some stairs, right? So, but I'm also in that vein, not a professional athlete, in that I don't have my teammates behind me in this game. It's a brotherhood. It's very competitive, and you got guys out there kind of giving it their all. And like, it's not like, if he was injured or something, that's one thing, right? That's a whole nother thing. Like, I'm hurt. There's a head injury, I got the wind knocked at something, right? But then when he came out after the game in the press conference, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to lie. I was just tired. It's just not a good look, right? Yeah. And I'm not advocating for like necessarily lying or anything, but like, that's just about like, you almost got to come up with a better excuse for that, just to kind of save face or something. But clearly it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, rubbed his team the wrong way. And, for someone who's not walking the walk for that kind of thing, he should not be talking that talk.
Yeah, it's potentially a career-altering sort of move, right? Like, he definitely has shown flashes, like we talked about, of being a capable quarterback in the NFL, but it's certainly the jury is out on whether or not he is a franchise quarterback. And then to come out here and to do that, it calls into question not only his future with the Colts, with them making the switch to Joe Flacco now, but also just his future in the NFL. So it's going to be interesting to see how this impacts his career. Which a moment of, hey, I'm tired, I'm coming out. It's crazy to think about how that small momentary decision can have just a huge impact for him. So
especially because a couple plays before, he did have a scramble. But like, it was when I first heard it, and I was like, oh, he must have had like a 40-yard run or something. And then I'm looking at it, and I was like, oh, it was like he didn't even make the first down on like a couple-yard scramble. I was like, oh, okay. It's regardless of what happened, what he was feeling, everything. It didn't didn't have good optics.
With it. Most certainly, pretty rough there. All right, Jeffrey. Well, we want to thank everybody for tuning in on this Tuesday evening. We had Edward, Champy, Nick Thompson, my father there, everybody who participated in chat, and everybody who was watching. Again, we're coming to you live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. So whichever one of those platforms is your favorite. If you do enjoy the show and want to help the channels grow, please do like, follow, and subscribe. I know we're up to 56 subscribers on YouTube, so we have an eye kind of on maybe hitting that 100 mark, hitting the triple digits before the end of the season. So if you do want to help us out there, head over to YouTube, look up the Lions Grid, and if you want to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you're kept up to date when we do go live with all of our shows. Of course, we come into you live on Tuesday evenings at 6:30 and Sundays at 11 a.m. most of the time. Sometimes we do have to make some changes depending on what's going on. But primarily, those are our days this season. We do appreciate everybody tuning in. And then if you do want to engage with the content in other ways, we do have some clips and things like that, reels on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And then if you prefer to listen to us via podcast, we're also on Spotify. So you can find the Lions Grid podcast there, and you can catch the replay of this episode and all of our previous episodes there on Spotify in the season 8. So Jeffrey, this is the end of week 8, season 8 of the Lions Grid.
Dang.
We got a few more weeks here to go in the regular season, but feeling good so far. 6-1 through 8 weeks. Pretty good spot for the Lions to be, all things considered.
Yeah, looking forward to going into Lambeau and laying down some lumber. Hopefully we can drop another 50 burger on it.
Yeah, if we drop 50 in back-to-back week, what if it's a 60 burger? We just keep growing each week.
It's a 70 burger, an 80 burger. Oh, man.
I think that game is probably, we'll be talking about it on Sunday, this matchup with the Packers. But if we are dropping 60, I can only imagine that game has turned into a complete and utter just shootout, like in one of those Texas-Oklahoma Red River rivalries. There's no defense being played, and both offenses are just scoring at that point because it just – we talked about it. Jordan Love is channeling his inner Brett Favre and is just slinging that ball around. So he'll have touchdowns. He'll have interceptions. It'll be a very interesting game if we do put up 60. So, looking forward to it. It should be a very good game to break down. And, the Packers, I think, are, at least right now, Jeffrey, we sort of thought the Vikings were our biggest adversaries here in the NFC North. We handled business against them in Minneapolis. Now it's time to handle business against the Packers at Lambeau. So, and again, historically, as long as we've been alive, the Lions have struggled at Lambeau Field. Dan Campbell's Lions, though, have not. They're 2-0 at Lambeau. So,
I bet we have those weeks circled, right? Yeah. We've been getting sunned by Aaron Rodgers for years, so it's a bit of a turn tables, if you will.
Holding grudges and eating kneecaps. That's what we do underneath Dan Campbell. All right, everybody. Well, thank you again for tuning in. We'll catch you during Sunday's episodes. And as always, go Lions.
Go Lions.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. We'll see you later.